Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you enjoy networking and Expo. If conversations were cut short, if you want to continue, you'll have the opportunity to reconnect at the half an hour after this session, back at the networking or the Expo. And feel free to chat in the event or the stage if you're trying to get a hold of somebody else. We're really glad to have you at the Virtual Energy Summit, Michigan Battle of the Buildings, Business is Energy Innovation. A few housekeepings if you're just tuning in. On the right side over here, my right side, I don't know if I'm pointing left, but on the right side of your screen, you have the stage, which is the equivalent of like talking in a microphone in the auditorium. So go ahead and put your questions in there, your comments, links that you want to share with the audience. In the event chat that's right next to it would be the equivalent of maybe like a microphone that goes through the whole stadium or the whole campus. So if you want to communicate with anyone, regardless of where they are in this virtual platform, you would go ahead and put your information or your comments in the event chat. We also have polls, and those will be going on throughout our conversation with our three speakers. And go ahead and let us know what's going on in your mind when you're including in those polls. Those are really important to us. And on the left side, we have stage here, and then the networking and the expo, which networking is automatically generated with random folks who are also in this session, as well as the expo, which is the equivalent of going up to someone's table and getting to know them, seeing their information, getting a flyer of sorts, or clicking on their links. So that will be available at the end and a half an hour after the session. But in the meantime, we have an hour and a half of incredible content with three amazing speakers. I'd like to introduce the sponsors for this event. We have the visionary sponsors, DTE and consumers, who support Michigan Battle of the Buildings throughout the whole year, the whole competition, as well as the Michigan Energy Summit. And we have Eagle, who is our summit sponsor for this year, and we're very grateful for them. Our happy hour session, which will be next week, is sponsored by the Lions. The Detroit Lions, thank you. And a third-party verifier keeping the integrity of this program is Bergman Associates. And session sponsors throughout this whole month have been DNVGL and Hearst. We're very grateful for their continued support. And we're thankful for the time donated today by our three panelists. And we're going to be introducing to the stage Ke Yang. She's a senior sustainability analyst for Steelcase. Christian Calvary is the assistant property manager for Colliers International. And Kate Mowbray is the wastewater plant operator for the city of East Jordan. You are the first folks to know. These are three of our 2019 Battle of the Building winners, and we're very excited to have them speak with us today. They have very unique perspectives of how the needle is moved forward in their variety of vantage points that they come from, either from global corporations or from property management or from a rural municipality working with taxpayer money. So I welcome you folks to the stage. Please share your screens and let's begin. Okay. Thanks, Don, Christian. Thank you for being here, to each of you, and working with us in this virtual world that we have. So to start the session off, I'd like to share with the audience a video from the city of East Jordan. So excuse me while I share my screen. Can everybody see it?
East Jordan is a town of about 2,300 residents, and it's located where the Jordan River intersects and meets with Lake Charlevoix. East Jordan is like a lot of municipalities in Michigan. We're experiencing very high lake levels, and with an aging infrastructure, that means a lot of groundwater and stormwater is entering our sewer system, and that's overwhelming the collection system and also the treatment plant. So our goal is to reduce the amount of this stormwater and groundwater that's coming into the stations, and then therefore that will reduce our electrical costs because we won't be pumping this water that doesn't really need to be treated anyway. In our case, finding that one lift station that the electrical usage actually went up was the red flag that I was looking for, that pointed me to, hey, that's where the extra water is coming from. You know, 22.36% energy reduction for that one station was about $600 a year. If we can save $600 on 7 different lift stations, you know, that's $4,200 that can be used every year to either rehab a manhole that's deteriorating and letting water in, fixing a leaking wet well, or just save it towards a larger project. For me, winning the battle of the buildings is validation that sometimes just making these small operational changes can have a big impact on energy reduction. Our project didn't cost the city a dime. I didn't have to change a single light bulb. We didn't have to buy anything. It was 100% payback right away.
So what you guys think?
Very nice. Very, very cool.
Yes, Kate. Can you tell us a bit more about this project? Can you give us a thumbnail sketch of how this came to be?
All right. Like the video said, we didn't spend any money. Our project was simply an operational change. We didn't buy any equipment, didn't change anything other than we physically put eyes on the equipment more often, and this allowed the collection system operators to catch little problems before they became big problems. Like a lot of municipalities were having trouble with people flushing those flushable wipes. Those get into the pumps and plug the pumps off. So you can imagine a pump running partially plugged for 24 hours. It's moving water, but not a whole lot. With the guys going and checking the stations more often, they were able to catch that, take the pump out of service, remove the plug, and restore it to full operating efficiency. And that's really where our savings came from.
Yeah, it's a story. It's a real story that proves that you can't monitor what you don't measure, right? And with increased measuring, you're able to find all these things that were previously overlooked, and save the city of East Jordan and the ratepayers quite a significant amount of money. And Christian, you also have an interesting story with River House. Would you care to explain a little bit more about that? Are you on mute?
I am muted, thank you. Didn't want to interrupt anyone else. So Colliers manages River House condos. In fact, for 3 years, I was part of the team that managed the facility there. And the building was built in 2008, and it was built with all fluorescent lighting. And in their last year, we went ahead and replaced much of that lighting with LED. And we chose the simple path. We just did some ballast bypass fixtures in 2 very large stairwells. For those who aren't familiar with River House, it is the tallest building in downtown Grand Rapids. It is 406 feet to the roof, so the stairwells are quite tall, as you can imagine. So even just changing out the lights there was quite a significant savings for us. The project overall only cost $1,500 after rebates and such from consumers. In addition to that, there are, being 406 feet tall, there are 30 floors of living space that were all lit with 14 recessed can lights. And we replaced all of those with LED fixtures, which cut the wattage in half. We also In the evening and overnight, those lights, every other light gets turned off. So we go to night lighting, and we just expanded the hours that those are dim. The hallways are dim so that there's more energy savings there with cutting the time down.
You said, I'm sorry, go on, Christian.
That was it. What were you going to say?
You said, well, what was the overall price that you paid after rebates?
So it's been a while since I looked at it, but the stairwells after rebates cost us $1,500 or $1,700, and that was it's 144 T8. Excuse me, with LED fixtures or lamps. Sorry. Ballast bypass. So the ballast was removed and just wired directly into the 277 volt power in those fixtures.
Yeah.
The recessed lighting in the hallway, that was $27,000. A bit more expensive, and that was after rebates, but it still ended up with about a 5-year payback. And of course, those lights all had a 5-year warranty on them, so that's going to work out just fine.
Is it me or is Jillian frozen?
Yes, looks like Jillian froze.
Oh, oops. I think we lost her.
She'll be back in a moment.
Sorry, y'all. It's keeping it authentic, right? And see, let me know because I'm just chatting away here, thinking that y'all are good listeners. So, and I was getting at, I wonder what the payback was on that. And you said about 5 years, which fits perfectly. And I'm curious on what the utility rebate was for these upgrades were.
I would have to look it up. To be honest, I forgot those numbers. I'll come back to that before the end of this. And I'll have those numbers for you.
Oh my gosh, Christian, don't be an overachiever like that. I'm just curious. Thank you. And to transition it to cut. See, cut. What's really interesting about Steelcase is that yes, you won with a warehouse, and this is amazing in its own right. Though also Steelcase has just recently announced a very impressive carbon reduction goals of carbon neutrality. Would you care to give us a thumbnail sketch of what is going on in Steelcase with you and your team?
Yeah, for sure. So late August this year, Steelcase announced that we have set science-based targets. So that's aligned with climate science to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees. What that translates to us is that we're hoping to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by end of 2030, which from our owned and operated manufacturing facilities and bigger offices. So that's a really ambitious target. On top of that, we have also become carbon neutral this year. And we anticipate becoming carbon negative by 2030. While we reach for these ambitious reduction targets, we also wanted to make sure that we're investing in carbon removal projects that actively have a positive impact on the planet. So I know that we have pursued this from a slightly different approach than Kate and Christian, but in terms of greenhouse gas reduction targets, we really looked at how are we going to get there. It's a really ambitious target, and a lot of the projects that we're hoping to do, some of them are actually already underway, are energy efficiency projects. Those have a payback, and those are really good investment, many of them. And on top of energy efficiency projects, we're also looking at investing in renewable energy procurement and potentially on-site renewables for our larger facilities.
There's a lot you got going on. Just can you remind me how large Steelcase is? You're global. Your supply chain is global, and where are your buildings located globally?
Sure. A lot of our buildings, manufacturing buildings and bigger offices are located in North America. We have 3 manufacturing facilities in West Michigan, Grand Rapids area, 1 in Athens, Alabama, and 2 in Mexico. We also have manufacturing facilities in Europe and Middle East, and also 3 manufacturing facilities, I think, in Asia Pacific. So in China, India, and Malaysia.
This is a very ambitious goal for the worldwide, literally.
It is, but our footprint in terms of energy consumption and greenhouse gas reductions are actually very concentrated in West Michigan. And I think the Athens, Alabama plant is also a really good candidate for reducing their energy use. So a lot of our footprint is concentrated in these areas where we can look into opportunities first and target those highest emitting facilities. So they would have a bigger potential than some of our smaller facilities, for example, in Asia Pacific. So we're taking a very strategic approach in terms of targeting what are the energy fuel streams that we want to reduce and the facilities that we want to reduce from.
And so one of the building that you won in Michigan Battle of the Buildings this year is in fact in West Michigan. So
yeah, yes.
You're starting strong in the West Michigan track when it comes to reducing your emissions.
Yes, thank you, Julie.
No, thank you, God. So I'm curious, folks, about moving the needle takes many forms and it has a variety of motivators. And I love how this panel is leading in your own arenas, and you come from very different vantage points. So what would you say is your organization's main drivers to delivering the services or products that you produce? Let's start with Ka, since we're continuing along this. What do you think are your organization's main drivers?
Sure. So I think at Steelcase, we have a really long-lasting culture of prioritizing sustainability. We have been reducing air emissions, water, energy, and greenhouse gas emissions for the past 10, 20 years. And I think this year we launched these new ambitious targets primarily because first of our culture, we want to continue to do the good things. And then our investors and customers had a push on us to commit to these targets and really do better. And on top of that, I think a lot of it comes from seeking to do things better internally as well. We have a lot of old buildings that could use some upgrades, new technologies that could be employed, and a lot of internal processes that can be reimagined to fit better these energy efficiency projects to seek approval for that really good projects, which historically would not fit the ROI or payback expectations. So we have a lot of opportunities to do better things internally and then also communicate the good things that we're doing externally to our customers and investors.
So I'm hearing that it's the right thing to do for Steelcase, as well as your supply chain and your consumers or your clients are being very inquisitive about what Steelcase is doing to move the needle forward, to continue on the theme of this conversation.
Yeah.
And Christian, you work frequently with clients of all sorts, whether it be tenants or investors. What seems to motivate your organization to be able to meet their needs?
Yeah, so the real estate management services that Colliers offers, we do tenant representation and also represent the owners of spaces they want to lease, and it tends that those looking for lease or spaces to lease tend, they want the space to be nicer, to be cleaner, to be better for their employees, and Seeing that the operation costs of a more efficient space are lower, it can demand a higher premium to some degree for the landlord. And so that just makes it enticing for our clients to move towards those more greener spaces, upping the energy efficiency, and just improving the space in general.
Mm-hmm. And so your investors are really interested in making tenants happy, right?
Exactly. That's tenant retention is the biggest part of the business. I think it's much easier to retain a tenant than it is to find another tenant, for sure.
Yes, and part of what make tenants happy, especially in this downtown Grand Rapids area where River House was to see and feel with their own experiences how River House is maintaining a sustainable approach, even with the lighting.
Yeah, with residential, River House in particular, of course, that's condos. So, there's a direct one-to-one return on each homeowner's dues. They don't have that extra energy cost in their dues because every penny that the association spends has to be recouped in dues. So there, it's even more appropriate and more clear that, and with the ownership, they have a direct interest in increasing the energy efficiency and keeping the building in good operating shape. Sometimes it can be a little harder to convince an ownership group that that's important because they see the cost, but the rebates help, and just showing them the value long term of spending that money up front can help with that.
For sure. Some of it is just naturally changing over infrastructure and moving to the better technology, and sometimes a case can be made that this will increase the profitability of the building through tenant retention and just the quality of the asset.
Yeah, and that's the case we have to make to our clients. I would say not all of our clients see it as easily as we do, so it is a case we have to make for them. But some of them are coming to us with those requests, but it is some both ways.
And that's what I find so interesting about Christian's perspective with Colliers or with a Steelcase, is that no matter what, us in this global economy, you still can hear me, right?
We can hear you.
Oh no.
Can you not hear us now?
Well, I hope everybody can hear me because I'm going to keep talking. So what I was saying earlier was that
This one's longer than usual.
I know, usually she's back in a second.
Well, I guess I can just kind of go and
holy cow, guys,
she's
can
back.
you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you now.
I'm so sorry. Everybody on the call, thank you for your patience. Every time there's a little bit of a glitch, but for sure this one has been most challenging. So thank you everybody for your patience. And I hope that I didn't see what you all were doing, but I hope you weren't worried without the moderator here. So we're all capable. We're still here. So what I was saying was, what I find it really interesting is that both Steelcase and Colliers have to respond to what the customers are asking and what will continue to keep the business successful. And there's always a case for green buildings or sustainability, and it's just really interesting to hear the variety of approaches that need to be taken from a for-profit perspective. And I'm just watching very carefully to make sure you folks still can hear me. Okay, good. So Kate, with you are not a for-profit company. You're a municipality who is working hard to steward the resources of your community. So what are main motivators for the city of East Jordan to be able to move the needle forward in this regard?
Well, my motivation really had nothing to do with energy efficiency. I know it's really bad to come to an energy conference and say that. It wasn't even on the radar. Again, like most municipalities, we're facing issues with infiltration and inflow from leaky pipes, water getting in and water getting out on the drinking water side. So I'm being driven by discharge permit violations and overflows. My motivation is to find the leaks, stop the leaks, and therefore stop the waste. So in order for us to find the leaks, we needed better data from our pumping stations. So I had asked the collection system guys, actually it was more of a demand than an ask, that they changed the way they were doing things. Previously, the stations were only being checked every other day. I asked them to check every day because that would give me actual 24-hour event data that I could then correlate with these rain events and try to find out, where the extra water is coming from. And East Jordan is kind of unique. We're split in the middle. We have an east side and a west side of town, split by the Jordan River. So we have two twin stations, one on the west side, one on the east side, same pumps, same controls. And so we started with those stations first, tracking that data first, because doing all 7 at once was going to be a little bit overwhelming. So we went with these 2, and that's when we found the station on the east side had a 22% decrease in electrical use just from these guys checking the stations more often. But what we found on the west side was a 20% increase in electrical usage. So yeah, the reduction was nice on the east side, but really finding that one that was much higher than the rest, that was my prize, because now we know where to start looking for these leaks.
Oh my gosh, sorry y'all. So I had said, I hope you still can hear me. Thumbs up if you can hear me. Great. So in an ideal world, Kate, those twin stations would be operating exactly synonymously, or is that an incorrect assumption?
This station on the west side's got a little bit less flow just because there's less buildings connected to it, but they should have seen a similar amount of decrease in electrical if everything was based just on the guys catching problems more frequently. The pumps were replaced at the same time. They had the same controls. So everything else was similar.
Right. But I love the mystery of it all and figuring out why one was acting quite different than the other. And the lessons learned from the one lift station that you've won, are you able to find those lessons learned to be able to help with O&M of the other lift stations around?
Yes, we're continuing with the daily checks, and now it's kind of funny because every time it rains, I've got one guy who's out being a sewer detective. He's out popping manholes and trying to find where this water is coming from. It's kind of an incentive to say, hey, these little things are working. Let's keep doing it and see how much more of an impact we can have.
I love that. Some folks see rainy days as an opportunity to sit in and drink some tea and have a book, but not your team. Yeah, the mystery of it all. So, so we're all navigating our spheres using different jargon and reasoning for pursuing energy efficiencies. You know, as Kate was saying, that actually energy efficiency was just, you know, a fun bonus of the work that you were doing. And that happens with many folks. Many folks are using like smart business decisions without specifically thinking about sustainability. So could you describe the conversations or the budgetary requirements which are precursory for any sort of project to break ground? I mean, essentially, like, how do you move the needle? Starting with, how about Ka?
Okay. Sure. For us, I think the really critical conversations happened between the sustainability team and the senior leadership team. The senior leaders are really invested in committing to these targets and understanding how we can get there. And we explained from a sustainability perspective that these energy efficiency projects, they do not only have sustainability benefits, they also have great payback, cost savings, and they're really good business projects. So once we get that buy-in from senior leadership, then that becomes a strategic priority for Steelcase. Basically, that gets communicated to all Steelcase employees, from operations, procurement, our maintenance staff. Everyone knows that energy efficiency and energy savings is a strategic priority for Steelcase. And I think a lot of the conversations too actually happen with everyday staff too. Like our maintenance staff and our operations employees have been over the years doing a fantastic job of keeping our equipment running as efficiently as possible. And I know the warehouse that we won the award for, we actually have a lot of best practices in terms of heating the space and keep the heat inside in the winter, keep the docking doors locked, closed. So our employees are really invested in energy savings as well. Similar to what Kate was doing, that didn't really have any investment requirements, just keep the doors shut during winter and keep the heat inside. So that actually saved a lot of steam used to heat the space. And our steam comes from the energy center natural gas boilers. So that saves us natural gas as well. But I think a lot of the bigger projects with higher investment requirements would need to go through senior leaders, and that conversation had already happened, and we're really looking forward to doing more projects, energy efficiency projects in the future.
And so it seems like that there's a portion of like boots on the ground that feed up, and also the top decision makers feed down. It seems like there's a two-way approach to these sorts of decisions moving forward. Could you describe what it was like to have Rex be a part of the Steelcase portfolio?
Sure. So Rex renewable energy credits, I think we've been committed to procuring Rex equivalent to 100% of our global electricity consumption. Basically, that is a market-based approach where we would invest in renewable energy globally, similar to our footprint. So, but that isn't the whole story to Steelcase commitment in terms of greenhouse gas reductions, because we really want to drive down our own emissions in an absolute way. The market-based approach, the RECs and carbon offsets, for example, are a really good innovator, I think, to us, because that's first of all, that's a cost. In this case, we need to procure these market-based instruments, if we are able to drive down our own emissions and energy use, we're basically avoiding the cost for these market instruments. And second of all, I think it helps us to demonstrate our care for the planet and the level of commitment that we're willing to do. So combined with absolute reductions, what we're not able to reduce our emissions to the absolute zero. So the remaining balance, we're very willing to invest in these market-based approaches, such as carbon offsets, like reforestation projects that actively remove carbon from the atmosphere, and also renewable energy globally to invest in these credits. So I think that's a very much integral part of our overall strategy, but it's not what we would focus a lot of our investment and a lot of human resources or time on.
For sure. So it's the whole gambit which brings Steelcase forward. And with top leadership and even cross-disciplinary silos being on board with it, the whole portfolio can be moved, and Rex is just a piece of the big picture.
Yep.
Love it. And so, transitioning slightly to, conversations from a municipal perspective in a rural city of East Jordan, in a very beautiful corner of Michigan. Kate, you are talking about your lift stations. There's also kind of a bigger picture too to the wastewater treatment plant story with a lagoon, is there not? Could you describe that a bit more?
Yes, the city constructed a new mechanical wastewater plant in 2018, and we were in a unique situation where we still had the old lagoon system here. One lagoon did need to stay in service, but the other one did not. We were able to valve off and isolate one lagoon and separate it from the wastewater system. And now, with only needing that one lagoon in service, we were able to replace a couple of 20 horsepower pumps with a single 5 horsepower pump, remove aeration equipment, power down some MCC panels that we didn't need anymore. And that reduced the electrical consumption at that meter by almost 90%. And you're kind of probably wondering what we did with the other lagoon. I made a few phone calls, so some contacts I had, and we converted that second lagoon into a walleye rearing pond for the Department of Natural Resources. Essentially, we have a 10 million gallon aquarium, and we will be raising fish to be stocked in area lakes. So green projects come in all shapes and sizes.
Absolutely. I love how you say that, Kate. I just, phoned up a few of my contacts and low-key saved the natural resources of northern Michigan with a walleye. So this lagoon design, I remember you telling me before that it's unique to your landscape. Not everybody can create this lagoon that you have, correct?
Yeah, this isn't something that other municipalities are really going to be able to recreate unless they have a spare lagoon, laying around. Most people don't have 22 acres that they're going to turn into a walleye pond for somebody. So this was something that it was kind of a liability to the city. What are we going to do with this pond? And, I needed to find a way to turn it into an asset. And, this whole area is lakes and rivers and fishing and sportsmen, and what can we do to give back?
That's phenomenal. And so I just love the story. And when I come back to the Boyne area, I'll have to make my way up to the city of East Jordan. I have family up there. So the fish process of the walleye with partnering with folks from the state, about how long would you say that project from idea to implementation was? Timeline?
Well, we technically haven't gotten the fish yet because COVID stopped the collection of walleye eggs this past spring. But from the time, I made the first phone call till we had the signed agreement was less than a month. Basically, they came out right away, took a look at the ponds, looked at our water quality data, and were right on board. So, except for COVID, putting the brakes on it, we probably would have had 20, 30,000 fish ready to go this fall. But we'll try again next year.
20 to 30,000 fish in just the one lagoon to be able to be shared with other rivers and ponds and lakes all over Michigan. Is this have you seen this sort of partnership been done in the past? How did you get this idea? It's really cool.
There have been other wastewater plants that use old tanks and things for fish hatcheries, research projects, things like that. I had the idea of this because I've grown up around walleye rearing ponds. My dad designed and is on the board of directors for the Mason County Walleye Association. So from the time I was a teenager, every spring it was, hey, we've got 250,000 fry coming in, and they would raise them for 2 months. And so it's just sort of, it's in my family history.
I love that. And fry means little fish, right?
Yeah, the fry are the little fish, and we would get them probably from my dad's pond and get them midsummer, and we'd raise them from 2 inches up to 6 to 12 inches in length.
I love that story. Because I remember when seeing it on the Battle of the Buildings, and when I called Kate up, Kate was like, "You're probably wondering if that was a mistake." And I'm like, "What? Yeah, what happened here? 90% reduction. What happened?" And in the end, the lift station definitely had to win because the lagoon is so unique, and a project which is irreplicable. Though it's still fascinating in its design. Thank you for sharing, Kate. And Christian, how would you describe the conversations and budgetary requirements for projects breaking down? How does Colliers move the needle?
So all the projects we do, our clients are investors. They're looking to make money off the space. I mean, you can't break it down any better way than that. So when we go to budget a project, we have to make sure the return on investment is fast enough that makes sense for the client. Not every client is planning to hold on to a building or a facility forever. They want to make money off it, so they're selling it in 3-4 years. So if the return on investment isn't within that window, it doesn't make sense for them to move forward with the project. As we talked about River House, for example, that's a condo association. They're holding on to that for a long time. So return on investment for them, what had to make sense is it had to be under the expected life of the lighting. So 5-year warranty, had to be under 5 years. We were really lucky in that regard. I looked up the numbers like I said I would.
Ah.
So the return on investment for the hallway lighting was 2.3 years. So really great turnaround when the lights have a 5-year warranty. So they did well there. The total rebate received for all of the lighting was, excuse me, $15,000. So out of a project cost of about $32,000, they almost saved 50% in rebates. So a huge win for River House and their energy costs. And that's obviously what led us to win for multifamily. So just making sure the project, return on investment makes sense to the client's needs and wishes to hold on to a building, or make sure that they're not going to come out in the red at the end, is what really pushes us to make sense of projects. We lost Jillian again. Lighting is a low-hanging fruit, but there's more that we do, with heating and cooling systems, building envelopes, and meter change outs to reduce man hours. Those are all things that can be done to help reduce energy costs and costs in general.
Thank you, Christian. You can hear me now, right?
I can hear you.
Gosh, again, panelists, thank you so much for being patient with this technical difficulties, and folks in the audience, thank you so much. So nothing happens in a silo, as Koa and Kate and Christian were just nailing home. There's always some sort of helpers, right? And I'd like to add that we've all been helped by catalytic relationships or policies, which have aided in spurring our innovation. So can you folks think of who or what comes to mind when reflecting on catalyst organizations? What catalysts within your organization with energy innovation? I'm thinking like, policies, or maybe a millage, or, in particular individuals. How about you, Christian?
Well, I've always had a passion for electricity. I studied electrical engineering at college. I didn't finish myself, but I've always had that in mind, and I just like the idea of saving energy, just LED lighting, and just doing better for the planet. So I've kind of personally been a bit of a driver there. Within our organization, our team leader, Kyle Sisko, he's always pushing us to basically make our role be the thing we want it to be. So does that make sense?
It does. I love it.
I kind of lost track of the question there, if you can repeat it.
No, it was great. With you're talking about like folks who are big catalysts to moving the needle forward in Colliers. The question was, about catalysts, whether that be like policies or people that help bring Colliers forward.
Thank you. Yeah. So, like I said, our team leader really pushes us to innovate and find what we'd like to see Colliers be.
Love it. And what about you, Ka? Are you on mute?
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now? Okay. I think we have a really awesome operations and maintenance staff globally at COKs, as I mentioned earlier, who's always keeping our equipment running as efficiently as possible. We also have an amazing facility management team that looks at energy efficiency projects, doing a lot of energy projects and energy audit on their own without us asking. And that was even before we got the buy-in from the senior leaders. So really proactively pursuing these projects and identifying these projects as well. And I think our senior leaders as well, I think during the conversations that we've had with them, demonstrated really who Steelcase is, our culture and our care for the planet. I think they were really invested and they were willing to make these ambitious commitments. I think that's definitely deserves a shout out. And I think everyone at the sustainability team, I think I just love everybody that I work with, really passionate about saving energy, recycling, and everything. So I think what really fascinates me about this overall sustainability strategy at Steelcase is that it's really a culture from top down and bottom up, and everybody is engaged and invested in identifying opportunities and doing things a little bit better.
I love that. I love that. And I'm sure, Kate, you probably can see some synergies in these answers. What's your perspective on this?
Well, everything that we do, we have to keep our ratepayers in mind, the people paying the water and sewer bills. I believe that there's nothing worse for the environment than people living in poverty in the environment. So we have to do what we can to keep the rates affordable, which means everything we do, there has to be a reason for it. And it can't just be that's the way we've always done it. So that requires people willing to change the way they're doing things and, find out, is there a more efficient way we can do things? Have things changed in the last 20 years? And for me personally, we would not have been able to get this data collected and had any of these savings if it weren't for, you know, two guys in the Department of Public Works that were just willing to say, okay, let's change things up. I don't know if they went along with me just to shut me up or they actually thought I was right, but I don't care. The data got collected and the savings are there. So sometimes just getting one or two people in the organization to have that buy-in and make that change. We're hoping now that it could continue throughout the rest of the city, the rest of the departments, and maybe we'll get more support, more people on board. But those are the guys, the boots on the ground are the guys that are actually looking for problems, looking to fix them now. They're the ones that got us the savings.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Oh, can you hear me okay, everybody? Okay. I love what you said and I think you had said it to me before, that there is nothing worse for the environment than poverty itself. And I think that that speaks to I think the wisdom which you carry when you are working with your department, as well as the responsibility and stewardship of both the resources and the folks that you're working with, or for, if you're talking about for the folks who live in the city of East Jordan. And hoping everybody can still hear me. My next question is, can you tell me more about what you're hearing from your clients or from your residents? You know, what excites them or what is concerning for them? Kate, will you please take this away?
Okay, I'm hearing nothing, but that's actually a good thing. We're an out of sight, out of mind business. So if my phone isn't ringing, if nobody's calling City Hall with complaints, it's actually a good thing. We were doing a public outreach campaign. We've developed a plant mascot, Jordy the walleye, to tie in with our walleye thing. And that was going to be to try to educate residents about sewer systems, sanitary and storm sewers, protecting Lake Charlevoix and the Jordan River. Also, to provide some funding options for property owners that might need some assistance with replacements. That got canceled again due to COVID, so we'll try again next year. We've dubbed it the SOS program, the Save Our Sewers. So hopefully we'll get a little more public outreach that way, so we won't be so out of sight, out of mind in the future.
I love that, the SOS. And Georgie the walleye, is that what you said?
Jordy, named after the Jordan River.
Of course. I love that, Kate. And Christian, you also are a bit of a out of sight, out of mind kind of a stakeholder in the whole perspective of property management. How would you hear from your clients, whether that be tenants or stakeholders?
Well, right now is a really unique time, especially with COVID. It's a big focal point, especially with commercial real estate, office space in particular. So a lot of our clients are asking us to make sure things are bulletproof, make sure we're not going to have any catastrophic issues, make spaces more enticing. I think we've talked about a lot of businesses that rely on a team aspect are going to still want office space and such, but just making sure that those spaces are enticing and keeping tenants happy is what they're concerned about. They want to keep the tenants happy. Our residents in our residential properties, they want to make sure their costs stay low, and so those things are easily done with increasing energy efficiency, increasing the quality of the space through indoor air quality, or reducing drafts and such like that with the building envelope.
And the stakeholders are wanting this for the tenants, a bulletproof plan for the tenants.
Right. The happier your tenant is, the happier your stakeholder or investor will be.
And a happy tenant right now, especially in COVID, is also like a safe and rest assured tenant too.
That's right. We've made a lot of changes with increased cleaning and trying to save money. Reducing trash pickup of your dumpster with the spaces that are empty now it doesn't save a whole lot of money, but it's something to add to the list of things that adds up.
For sure. Something that had been brought to my attention by another person in Grand Rapids is that they've actually changed the scheduling of cleaning also to be visual for folks in the building to be able to see that they're cleaning, because it helps give a bit of peace of mind that things are sanitary around the clock, not just when folks aren't around anymore.
Yeah, we've done that as well. Residential, that becomes very important. And living in multifamily buildings, it becomes more important to make sure they're cleaning throughout the day instead of just during working hours when people aren't in the building, especially with the high contact touch points.
Yeah, especially with those, and hand sanitizer at every corner. I like that when I go into a building. I'd rather have that than a bouquet of flowers at this point. So, Co, what about you? What are you hearing from clients?
A lot of excitement, I think. We've been hearing from our customers that they're really excited that we are doing the right things, and they're very eager to learn how we made it happen and what we're going to do in the future, and how they could potentially work together with us on those fronts. I think a lot of excitement from our customers, but also a lot of questions and concerns internally on how are we going to make it happen. These are really ambitious targets. What do we need to do? Do we even have enough opportunities? So I think we are definitely excited that our customers are very happy about what we're doing. And we're also trying to answer those internal questions and concerns about what we're going to do through a lot of projects or investments that are going to be happening in the next 10 years. So kind of both sides, I guess, both excitement externally and some questions internally.
It seems like the questions internally are not as resistance as how are we going to achieve this challenge, and that is those are really good internal dialogues to be having on the yes and approach, like yes and what are opportunities to make this happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
The client feedback, I'm sure, is crucial to Steelcase continuing that momentum, correct?
Yes, for sure. I think a lot of our customers are doing the right thing by pushing us in the right direction. And I think we're very excited to be working with Steelcase, that Steelcase is taking this journey along with our customers, that sort of creates this ripple effect and this overall climate action. And I think a lot of customers are very happy, first of all, if they are further along the journey than us, they're very happy that we're now playing catching on. And a lot of our customers, even if they haven't set these ambitious targets, they're actively looking into setting one, and they're very eager to learn the overall process from us and how can we help them potentially set these targets too. So I think that's really interesting how all of our customers are very excited about it. So is Steelcase.
And it seems to be like a co-learning, right? And between both stakeholders. And from a Grand Rapids perspective too, for folks who are your peer, not necessarily your client or someone in Steelcase, we're watching each other, and we're peer-to-peer learning in that regard too. That's one of the biggest things about Michigan Belleville buildings, is learning from each other in these sort of sessions. Usually these are in person, and usually there's a happy hour at the end. But right now, this is what we got for 2020. And we're really fortunate to have all three of you on the call to talk about this exactly. So this is the point where we're going to be moving it over to audience Q&A. And I see that there is quite a few questions in the chat. So if you are having a question right now and you want to put it out, just feel free, and I'll make sure to try to answer this in the order in which
We lost you,
So I don't know. You can hear me, right?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes.
so this is time for Q&A, and one of the questions is from Isabel, and it says, "What has been?" This is probably a question for Kate, by the way. What is being done to separate stormwater and sewage water? If stormwater could be directed into natural drainage channels, that would greatly reduce the intake of sewage treatment, wouldn't it? For Kate.
Great question. The city of East Jordan's sanitary and storm sewers are supposed to be separated, but as with any old municipality, there's probably some things that have gotten missed through the years. We are suspecting that there is a storm drain somewhere still tied into our sanitary system. So we've actually partnered with Michigan Rural Water Association the last 2 summers, and we have been doing some smoke testing. That's where we pump non-toxic smoke into the sanitary system and find where it goes. And this summer we were able to find a few roof drains in our downtown area. And we're working on with those building owners to get those disconnected. And we also use the results of finding that one station on the west side of town that had the higher electrical usage. We use that data to hire a contractor this fall to video televise all of the sanitary sewer lines on that side of town. So we are looking on that side of town right now, but we don't have all the results back yet. I think they just finished up last week, so to be determined what our outcome is on that.
Thank you, Kate. That's good information. I think, if I remember correctly, Isabel also actually has quite a deep interest in water management. And when I lived in Syracuse, they also were trying to separate the stormwater and the sewer. Is that like a common theme amongst water management throughout the U.S., trying to undo the combination of stormwater and sewage water?
Yes, especially with the cost increase to treat anything that comes into your plant has to be treated. It didn't matter if it started off as clean water or not. And I actually sat down and did the calculations, and a 1 gallon per minute flow of stormwater into a sanitary system, or our sanitary system, is costing us about $70 a year just to pump it out to the wastewater plant. Now you multiply that 1 gallon per minute leak by potentially hundreds of leaks in a system, and you can see it's very quickly, it's death by 1,000 cuts. So yes, municipalities, it's either separate out the systems or they have to build bigger treatment plants. And it's where do you want to spend your millions? I'd prefer to spend it out in the collection system, fixing the leaks and finding those connections.
Wow, that's amazing. And to redirect the clean water out, I'm sure, yes, would cost, but definitely not at $70 a gallon to not put into a wastewater treatment plant, correct?
Yeah, if you're in an area where you've already got some natural outfalls, we have Lake Charlevoix in our backyard. So if we can find some, or even, don't even necessarily have to divert it to a body of water. There's bioswales and, stormwater retention basins that use natural plantings that are doing a great job of filtering that water before it gets back to the groundwater.
That's amazing. And actually, Isabel says she loves the investigative technique that you're using, and the smoke channels is amazing. So if there's further questions regarding this particular process, whether it is with Kate or with Isabel or whoever else on the call, feel free to put your questions in the chat even more. There was a question earlier, I think it was directed to Christian. And it says, Christian, how do you measure individual tenant consumption of gas, electric, and water? Or do you? That's my little add.
We do in some cases.
You're on mute. I'm so sorry. Okay.
Erwin, we use sub-metering. In a lot of cases, the lease doesn't call for it to be separated out that way. In some cases, we sub-meter it, and our team will take those readings and send them to the appropriate people. But in a lot of cases, they don't use those metrics for anything at this time, but it's sub-metered. So hopefully that answers the question.
No, I think it does. The sub-metering is also for like an internal check too, right?
Yeah, it breaks the building up to some degree, and that lets us, notice or find if the water usage in one space is extra high. We know there might be a leak somewhere underground within that run, so that's helpful. But yeah, sub-metering is very common.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember when I was a tenant once upon a years ago. There was a leak, and he was able to tell it because of the sub-metering involved. So, good landlord award for that guy. And for Colliers too, to be able to sub-meter out and know the responsibility of doing so. Not every multifamily unit does that.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning too with sub-meters, that extra cost to have someone go read the sub-meter aside from the utility. There are opportunities to automate that through certain companies that are worth, I think E3M, I think most people are familiar with E3M, but we've worked with E3M in several cases to automate that process and save money on that.
Yeah, they're a professional stakeholder of the 2030 district and a member of USGBC. They're a great organization for that, as well as there's other awesome stakeholders who do similar things in the 2030 district and USGBC. I'm glad to know that you're using that sort of energy management.
Yeah, in fact, we're working with E3M now. I'm not personally involved in the project, but if I remember correctly, we're working to update the sub-meters on a property in Kentwood that has over 35 or 40 meters. It's a very large project, so it'll save a lot of time in reading meters for us.
Yeah, absolutely, big time saver. Erwin, I know that I think that you also own a multifamily unit too. So, Erwin, if you have more questions on this, this is your time to ask away. And thank you, Christian, for that answer. There's a question here earlier directed specifically to Ka. I'm trying to find it. So it says, do you see your efforts driving up the costs of your products?
Yeah, good question. I don't think so. So a lot of these efforts, yes, they do require upfront capital investment in, for example, energy efficiency projects. But keep in mind that our target is 10 years out from here, and we intend to further commit targets afterwards. So a lot of these energy efficiency projects would result a net positive payback by, for say, the end of the 10-year by 2030. And they actually help drive our operational cost down. For example, if we pay less for our electric power consumption, we drive down our electric power consumption, then we pay less into utility cost. So yes, they do require upfront capital investment, but we think that a lot of these energy efficiency projects will have a net positive payback, and they will actually drive our operational costs down. So we do not expect our customers to absorb any of the cost, if any, by the end of the 10-year period.
We can't.
I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Because I was on mute. This is a great answer, Ka. And there's an answer in the chat here that says, so that was a phenomenal answer. So I was just curious if internally you faced some concerns about it affecting the product price too when you were talking in interdisciplinary conversations.
Not necessarily affecting the price for product. I think we were keeping those conversations separate. We did have questions in terms of what is the magnitude of investment needed, what sort of projects, what payback schedule are we expecting for these energy efficiency projects, that sort of question. And I think we did a feasibility study before committing to these ambitious targets with senior leadership, and yes, it does require a significant amount of upfront capital investment, but if we make smart business decisions on how are we pursuing the projects, which projects are we pursuing, I think to my earlier point, they do actually pay back. So if we just expand the horizon from the current 1 year or 3 year to the next 10 years, those projects are really good business decisions to be made, and those projects are really good projects to pursue. So it wouldn't have a impact on our product price. It's more on the operational cost side. So for product price, I don't anticipate these efforts affecting that at all, and we haven't had that question from internally as well.
Thank you, Claire. There was a question to the panelists overall, which I think that maybe you could start us off with. Where did it go? It says, do you have any other projects that you haven't mentioned yet that that are on the docket? Maybe Claire starts us off, and then we'll go Kate and Kristen.
Sure. We actually started a ASHRAE Level 2 energy audit at our Kentwood complex and also Caledonia wood plant. Those are our West Michigan manufacturing facilities, really the highest energy users, highest emitting facilities. I think we just received a draft report back from the auditors, and they have already identified many energy conservation measures for HVAC system, our lighting, and our equipment. So that's really exciting, and we're looking forward to receiving the more detailed report back and to start implementing some of them. Many of them are no to low cost ECMs as well. So those are really ones that we could implement within the next 12 months. So we have a lot to do once we get the report back. And I would just mention this, that we're also engaging with our suppliers. So similar to what the request that we receive from our customers, we're also engaging with our suppliers to motivate and empower them to do the same, commit to these ambitious targets, and also share out our energy efficiency projects, our lessons learned, how are we going to meet the targets with our suppliers, sort of to create that ripple effect. That we get requests from our customers, and then we're also inviting our suppliers to take on the journey with us. Jillian, I can't hear you.
Wonderful answer, Claire. And Mike, I had continued with Kate. Are there questions? Other projects which you're about to be working on at the City of East Jordan?
Well, we are continuing to look for those leaks, but we're also doing some other smaller projects that don't require any capital outlay. Little things like winterizing buildings that don't need to be used during the wintertime. Instead of running a heater in them all winter, we've just drain the pipes and shut off the main disconnect. That's estimated that's going to save us $1,500 over the winter. Also little things like just keeping up on the maintenance, the preventive maintenance on some pumps. We found one pump in the system that hadn't had the impeller adjusted in 9 years. Well, as soon as we moved that wear plate, we got a 5% increase in our pumping efficiency. So that means the pump is running less to move the same amount of water. So it's a lot of just little stuff, operational efficiencies. We're trying to build those in and make those a new normal for the operators in the system.
I love that answer. You can hear me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Fantastic answer, Kate. And Christian, what about you?
So going back to River House, the winner this year in 2019, next big project there is there are 2 million BTU boilers that serve the hydronic system in the building that everyone's heat pump draws from to heat each individual condo, and they are currently looking at replacing one, if not all of those now, to a high efficiency boiler to help save on natural gas costs. We have a large window replacement project in the works at a historic building downtown. That should be quite a big energy savings, as they are, if I remember correctly, they are very old single pane windows. Just a matter of getting with this historical society there to make sure things are all on the up and up. What else? Back to River House, I guess it's a very tall building, which is somewhat unique to Grand Rapids. So they're battling stack effect. For those who aren't aware, stack effect is just that the chimney draw of hot air up and out through all the penetrations and such in the building. So you really just have a cold air problem in the winter, essentially. And in the summer, it's the reverse, hot air getting in at the top and the cold air sinking down and escaping at the bottom. And just fighting that by sealing up as much as we can and isolating all the entrances. Those are some of the major projects. Jillian, it looks like we lost you again. And while you get yourself back in, I noticed a question from Isabel regarding those sub-meters. I'm not directly working with that project, Isabel, but to my knowledge, the tenants can access those sub-meter readings, and they can see their usage, and they would then pay the landlord for their portion of consumption, and then the landlord would just pay the main bill to the utility.
You can hear me now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Great. And Christian, you might as well be the moderator. You're doing a great job. And that was the next question I was going to ask you. By the way, I see that Isabel had a question on that. So Isabel and everybody in the call, as usual, if you have a follow-up question to what was just described, go ahead and put it in the chat. There is a question directed to Cuss specifically. It says, how is Steelcase approaching on-site generation?
Really good question. I think we've looked into many opportunities. A lot of these, such as PVs or CHPs for our energy center in Kentwood. A lot of these projects have a really long payback. I think way more than 10 years that we would like. That being said, I think we're now looking at many smaller scale on-site generation opportunities. For example, we looked at solar canvas sort of thing that connects both of our buildings and the Grand Rapids GBC and Link. There is a walkway that we were hoping to build a solar canvas on top of it. It didn't work out that way, but we evolved into solar combined with EV charging and battery storage for the campus. We're looking into those projects ideas. I would say those are more moonshot for us at this moment, because our shorter term focus would be on those energy efficiency opportunities that drives the payback shorter than 10 years. But for on-site generation and on-site renewables, we're actively looking at those options. There just hasn't been a project yet that would work for us right now.
Excellent. Thank you, Kath. And thank you for the question, Erwin. That was a phenomenal one. So since we're about to wrap up the conversation, thank you for dedicating the time to talk with us and the rest of the Michigan Energy Summit today. I'd like to end it on what sort of advice or perspective could you offer the audience? And let's start with Kath. What sort of advice would you give the audience?
I think, so for Steelcase, before we had this top-down buy-in ambitious targets, I think we've been doing things from the grassroots level for many years. Like I was mentioning, our maintenance staff, our operations staff has been doing a killer job keeping those equipment running, keeping the doors shut during winter, keep the heat inside. So a lot of those smaller practices cumulatively really have a huge impact on us. saving energy and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So I think they are really the heroes at Steelcase, and they would be key going forward when we want to pursue more projects that with investment energy efficiency projects. So I think education, awareness, and raising engagement for all the employees is really interesting, and I think is key to our success.
I love that. What about you, Christian? You're on mute. I know the feeling, don't worry.
Just dogs barking, you never know. I would say for those who manage facilities, challenge your vendors. Your vendors should be able to tell you where you can save money, what they should be familiar with, what energy rebates and such that they can provide to you. So just push them, let them know you're interested in saving money and increasing energy efficiency. And when it comes time to budget for new items, let them know you're looking for that energy efficient option as well. And so challenge your vendors. For example, we had a vendor who's been doing combustion analysis on rooftop units, or excuse me, two boilers at a facility for years. And we just made sure that they were looking into it. And we found that they actually could get us a $1,200 rebate for work they were already doing just by engaging with DTE. So we were able to save $1,200 on work we were already doing just by challenging the vendor to look into it and pushing them. So challenge your vendors.
Love that. And what about you, Kate?
I guess I would say you don't always need to spend money in order to save money. Sometimes it's just about having the right people who care and are willing to change. That can have more of an effect than any product that you can buy. The downside to just making operational changes is they're not permanent. If you lose the people who cared, if they move on somewhere else and your organization hasn't changed and made that change, you lose those operational efficiencies. So my advice is when you find somebody who actually cares about energy efficiency and cares about efficiency across the board, not just electrical wise, hang on to them, because you may not realize how much they're saving you until they're not there anymore.
Everybody can hear me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great. That's a phenomenal answer, Kate. As they say, people are the business's strongest assets, and with them is an encyclopedia of knowledge about, well, of course, their life, but specifically about the work that they were doing in the business. And that's why we try to create redundancies on things. And Christian's turn to pop in and out. I hope he comes back. What was he saying? That's why we create redundancies on things, and nevertheless, you can't underestimate the power of just one person inside an organization. Thank you for that. So regarding Christian's advice to challenge your vendors, in the expo after this conversation, which we'll be wrapping up shortly, so if there's any final questions, now is the time to ask folks. We're going to have all sorts of vendors and organizations and even DTE and consumers who can give you money in the expo after this. So if you haven't been to the expo yet, this is how you approach it. When we're done with this call, not right now, you'll click on the expo session when the stage is complete, and then you will click into each individual booth and talk to somebody. And remember, just like right now, I can see Ka and Kate, and hopefully again I'll see Christian, right? But we can't see y'all. And that'll be the same way when you're in the booth. So if you do want to engage with somebody, make sure you type in the chat or share your screen to have a one-on-one conversation. Let's be honest, folks, it's 2020. This is the closest thing we're going to get to in-person conversation. So share your screen, get talking. You really don't know what's going to be able to happen. And also, there's networking too, which I find it kind of fun because you don't know who you're going to connect with. It's a random generation of other folks in the virtual summit. And our speakers are invited to go join the networking if they so choose to. And you'll be able to run into folks and talk with them about the question of the day, which is in the event session. And welcome back, Christian. and how this presentation went overall and what your curiosities moving forward are. So the question of the day, as Wendy's pointed out, is what was your last energy conservation project and what are your plans next? So as I was saying, we're going to be transitioning into ending the call. So if there's any last questions, now's the time. Thank you, Christian, for being able to come back. Now you know the struggles I've been having, huh? Oh, just kidding. We can't thank you enough, Christian and Ka and Kate, for speaking with us today. I know it's a variety of struggles, whether you're trying to get on different time zones or if internet connections are, less than ideal. But we're really grateful to have the three of you speaking with us, and thank you for speaking to your peers in the audience today. And also thank you to our sponsors, DNV, GL, hello Christian, Consumers Energy, DTE, Bergman, and Detroit Lions, and Hearst are all very valued sponsors that have been able to help Michigan Saves, not Michigan Saves, the Michigan Energy Summit and Michigan Battle of the Buildings move forward year after year. We're on our 6th one, and 2021 is around the corner. And the Michigan Battle of the Buildings can't happen without folks like you participating in the competition. So thank you for being involved, and we're really grateful for everybody who's able to make this virtual summit happen. Any final thoughts? Well, with that, I'm going to send everybody over to, thank you, Isabel. I'm going to send everybody over to Networking Expo. Thank you so much, everybody.